excitable, emotional, prone to fantasy.
There's nothing wrong with me. One pill makes you lie.
Hey, welcome back to Cine Reviews for another fine episode. Today on the show, we'll be talking about Alice Through the Looking Glass. We've got an awesome panel of two strong men and myself, Paulo, as the host. So let's kick things off right away and just get our overall feelings about the film coming off it, guys.
Well, this was like a sequel to Alice in Wonderland with a good dose of Back to the Future in it. Matthew?
Yeah, this was wacky hijinks turned up to like 8 or 9 or so. I wasn't very hot on the first film, but this one I think improved on it, so I was actually pleasantly surprised by this. But that's coming from somebody who absolutely hated the first film, so I don't know.
Okay. So you guys are both...
I'm positive
leaning
on
toward
the movie,
positive?
and I'm going to have more good to say than bad on this one.
Okay, I might be a little lower on it, but I think we should give like a very brief little plot synopsis here. So it's kind of like Back to the Future. Time travel is an element here, people. So what's happening is we start off with Alice, and she's voyaging on the seas, I guess.
She's a shipboat captain.
She's a shipboat captain, which is pretty cool.
A good shipboat captain.
The finest. And she goes back home and finds out that things aren't quite the way she might want them to be. There's some old players from the first movie. Things aren't adding up. And she ends up back in Wonderland, and she's got even more problems there. So she's going to have to go back in time and help out the Mad Hatter, who's in a bit of a crisis. And we'll let you figure out the rest as you see it. That stuff probably doesn't matter too much.
Well, the other part of it is the Mad Hatter's looking for his family.
Yeah, he's looking
That's the B plot of this movie, if you will.
Yeah. So let's just jump right in here. I want to start talking about the movie. I want you guys to give me something good that you thought was good about this movie, and we'll branch off of that into one of our categories.
I liked the personification of time. I thought Sacha Baron Cohen was fun as the personification of time in like the lowest common denominator sense. A child could watch this and understand, and as an adult I watched it and maybe laughed a little bit more, but...
It's a very lofty concept, but it's brought in a fun and approachable way, and that was good. I like that as well.
Cohen was definitely the highlight of the picture. When he was on screen, I was always glued to the screen. So I can't say that because you already said time, but I would say that the convoluted plot was actually a plus for me because this movie just moves at such a breakneck speed, and the plot is so convoluted. It's like strangling you the whole time. But it's crazy, and I like that, and it's just like zooming, and I don't know, it's just off the walls bonkers.
Who's the main character? If it wasn't named Alice Through the Looking Glass, I would guess it could be the Mad Hatter, it could be Anne Hathaway, it could be the Red Queen.
Yeah.
Because everyone's kind of got something going on.
There's like 3 plots going on here, and they all kind of have equal weight.
But I do think that Alice is a pretty straightforward protagonist in this one. She's really just driving everything she does propels the plot. And one thing I liked about the movie a lot is that in her propelling the plot and the decision she's making, she actually screws things up a little bit. She's not perfect. That's the way I saw it. And so I liked Alice in this movie. I thought she was a solid protagonist.
What didn't you like, Paul? You're a little more
Okay.
negative than we are, so...
Yeah, you're saying you don't like
hit
this movie.
us with the stuff and let us try and...
I felt like this movie didn't have enough new stuff for me. I wasn't a fan of the first one. You aren't either. And I don't remember it all that well, to be honest, but I felt there were parts in this movie where all the old characters from the first one are here, and I didn't feel like it had a whole lot of substance. It just sort of felt like we got to say hi to the Cheshire Cat, we got to say hi to the rabbit, and we got to get him to say something, and then we got to move on to the plot. So I felt like the callbacks to some of that stuff really took away from the film as a film by itself, and the sequelness of it bothered me quite a bit.
I hear that. I kind of went into this movie going, okay, this is directed by a guy who in the past decade has directed 2 Muppets movies. And one of the complaints against the last 2 Muppets movies was, hey, this character didn't get enough, or this character didn't get enough. You know, when you go to see a Muppets movie, you're going to get Kermit. You know, if Johnny Depp's playing whatever Muppet equivalent the Mad Hatter is, you're going to get a lot of it. Gonzo, clearly. So I'm very positive on the last 2 Muppet movies, so I kind of went into it wanting it to be good for James Bobbin's direction.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I didn't mind the convoluted plot, but I think a side effect of that is that a lot of the dialogue was dedicated to explaining what was going on and setting up what this is and what the chronosphere is. I mean, I know what a chronosphere is. I'm sure a lot of you guys know what a chronosphere is without being told, but the movie has to explain it to those of us who don't deal with chronospheres in our everyday life. So let's highlight a couple more actors while we're at it.
I specifically didn't like Anne Hathaway. I know she was in the last one, but she escaped my mind. I really liked Mia Werskowitz is, I believe, how you say it. I'm totally butchering that. Alice is great, but I felt like her and Johnny Depp were off key, whereas Sacha Baron Cohen and all the voice actors were dead on.
Yeah, Johnny Depp was not quite on point with this one. His performance was a little bit weird. I thought Alice was a good performance, but she was pretty flat. Like, she's a strong character, but she's pretty flat, which I would have liked if she had a little bit more edge to her.
She's got to be competent, have edge, and have pizzazz.
Yeah, a little wow.
It's not enough phallus. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's like the Harry Potter problem. It's like
okay, yeah, but that's fine, I suppose.
No,
I get that with like, oh, she's not dynamic. She doesn't have this great flaw. She screws things up, as you mentioned. But because I read that in the reviews, and I was like, oh, I don't know.
And I agree with what you were saying about the side characters being just kind of there. Like, I think that this movie did have some bloat to it, even though I liked the convoluted plot. If they had just like taken out a little bit of the fat and made it a little bit smarter with the script, like, I don't mind all the exposition, but give the exposition a little edge, make it a little bit funnier. And they did that a little bit, but if they had done that more, I think we'd have a good movie on our hands instead of just like a decent improvement on the original.
Are you referring to like how Tweedledee and Tweedledum and like the dog and all these other, the Cheshire Cat, are all there, but they're just
there,
kind
but
of
they
a
don't do
menagerie?
anything. Yeah, and they're like just one group. They're
But
like
they're
a
like a Greek chorus in this sequel. And that's how I looked at it, as like not all the Muppets are, I'm just going to keep going back to my Muppets example
you
here,
keep
guys.
calling it Muppets.
I don't think they
director.
added or detracted, but like they didn't need to be there that much. But if they weren't there, then you'd miss them. So what do you want? You want
I
them to
wouldn't
be-
miss them personally. Tweedledee and Tweedledum.
Well, a question. So for technical details, people ask me is, do you need to see this movie in theaters? Do you need to see it in 3D?
Okay, good question. I had a pretty good 3D experience with this one in that it didn't distract me from the movie. It wasn't bad. So in that sense, I found it good. There were no moments where I said, wow, I'm glad this is in 3D. But there wasn't anything where I said, I wish I wasn't watching this in 3D. So
Yeah.
I guess it was good.
If you're inclined to spend the extra money on 3D, go ahead. I don't think that the 3D is bad or anything.
I enjoyed the 3D, but I do think this is a big screen movie.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. Technically, how did the movie look to you guys? Because that's a big part of this. This is a big special effects.
It looked like they spent a lot of money on CG, but if you're going to spend a lot of money on CG, I'm sure other continents will enjoy that, seeing that realization.
Potentially.
I think the CG was a little hit and miss. Like, some of the characters didn't look as good as I would have liked, but
Such as?
like the dog character looked a little like if that character was just in a CG animated movie, I would think that it wasn't. I don't know. But like the town, like when they went back in time, like the way the town looked, it looked like a model or something. I don't know. I really liked the look of some of the CG. Like some of it was very nice.
Yeah, I think a lot of the compositions and the design of this movie, it's in the legacy of the Tim Burton movie that came before it. And I think that I actually liked the visuals in this one a little bit better. There's some really expansive, crazy backgrounds and cool effects because we're dealing with crazy time dilation and stuff. And I found that out to be pretty compelling.
By the end of the first one, I had a headache because the CG was just so much. But this one, it didn't bother me.
I actually got an eye infection from the last one.
I
don't think it was
that's
that.
possible.
The
That
last
might have been
one.
something you were doing in your own time. But do you guys have any other specific things you want to reference in the movie?
Well, the sister plot. There's like we've got the Mad Hatter, we've got Alice, and then we've got this sister plot.
They
that's
expand
underlying it.
they expand on the relationship between Anne Hathaway's character and Helena Bonham Carter's giant-headed character.
Yeah, the White Queen
And
and the Red Queen.
I saw they use CGI to make her body smaller. Is that how they do the effect?
I don't know.
It must be. Anyway,
I thought they CGI'd her head 2 times as big.
no, it makes more sense to me to make the body tiny and leave the head the same. Anyway, they expanded that. I actually really liked that aspect of the movie. I think that was good. It kind of reminded me a little bit of Frozen, actually, just because it was about sisters, and it was just literally about these 2 sisters and kind of their troubles when they were little. And I think that's good. I think I'd recommend it for that part.
That worked very well for me. Their thing, and like the fact that like all this chaos starts because of like a little tiny, I don't know,
A 4-year-old, like the kind of problem I had that exact same problem with Bryce Owsley when I was 4 years old. Bryce, if you're out there, I'm just saying, he told me not to tell his mom that I'd spilled something.
Yeah.
And then I didn't, and then when she came, she was like, why didn't you tell me? I was like, Bryce didn't tell me. And that is the crux of their crisis, and that's why I think this is a kid's movie, because any 4 or 5-year-old could.
And I think that extends to the other plots. I think I think the heart of each of the plot lines in this works. Like the dynamic between the Mad Hatter and his father, I think that works. And I think the dynamic between Alice and her mother like this is about like parents and siblings and stuff. But I think all of those plot lines work and they all pay off. And I don't know, like I can't fault it for that.
All right, let's just give our wrap-up thoughts. Would you guys recommend seeing Alice Through the Looking Glass in theaters now? Would you recommend spending your hard-earned cash, working every day?
I
at
would
the
say
paper?
go on a Tuesday for $5, and if you're feeling fancy, go $3 extra for the 3D because it is more immersive in 3D. I realized from seeing this movie, seeing Captain America once in 3D and non 3D, some of the stuff that looked like TV to me didn't look like TV when I saw it in 3D.
Ooh.
So I think that this movie has shots, and all of it is kind of designed with the notion that this is going to be shown in 3D in large screens, and specifically we're going to try to sell this overseas using that technology.
All right.
Yeah, and I would recommend you see this. Probably a matinee screening, and if you want to pay extra for the 3D, go ahead. With it, and with keeping in mind that what the first one was, and I think this improves on it, and I think that's what a sequel should do. So you know where the bar is, and I think this succeeds at what it was trying to do. So I would recommend it.
But
based
you
on
didn't
that.
like the first one.
No, I hated the first
Were your
one.
expectations high for the first one?
Yeah, because it was a Tim Burton movie. Tim
Burton's?
Burton.
He's plural.
There's many.
I would sort of recommend this movie. I think that if you're going in for just like a basic movie package, this is entertaining and not offensive and not boring. But if you just like to see good movies, if you like Alice in Wonderland, heck yeah, I think they did a good job for you. If you just like movies and you want to see a cool movie, I wouldn't recommend
It's
it.
weird that Disney's got Jungle Book, Captain America, and this out all within kind of the same period. Like all three of those movies could be conceivably in the top 5 this weekend.
Yeah. It's not weird. It's just they're taking over.
So you're kind of like insulting the viewer. You're like saying if you like bad movies, you will like this. If you're stupid, you're gonna like this movie. Is that what you're saying? 'Cause that sounds like what you're saying.
If you like effects heavy, fun movie, this is sort of a family movie too.
Well, would
so
you
that's
take
the
kids to
best
see this movie? I have a 3-year-old niece. I would have no problem letting her see this movie.
Yeah.
I could see why my sister would get mad at me, but I would still let her see it.
Yeah, I think this would like empower like little girls.
I think 3 is a little too small. I think it's a little spooky. There's some stuff in there that's pretty. Just by the fact that it's got Tim Burton DNA in it, there's some stuff that's maybe questionable in terms of Johnny Depp's face.
Maybe like 5 years old.
Maybe like 5. At
Or
5,
we're
I'll
gonna
take it.
split hairs on this, but
Yeah.
kids could see it maybe if they're in
Yeah.
kindergarten and they, in
Yeah.
some sort of school.
I think we might have a special bonus review or.
Oh, we do.
preview
Thank you.
here.
Yeah. When I was in line, since we didn't get to review X-Men this week, when I was in line to get my icy, I talked to. I believe she identified as a girl. She looked like a child. She looked under the age of 18. I didn't inquire, and I believe her ethnic origin may have been from some part of Asia.
Thank you for explaining.
She told me, so this is just the
Some important
demographic
details.
breakdown of this one data point.
Okay.
She told me she knows another person who saw X-Men Apocalypse on the internet, like an illegal cam, because it's already out overseas. Not good. She said cheesy. She said her brother said X-Men Apocalypse is cheesy, and somehow she told it to me in a way that I kind of trusted her. So I wanted to give her just that, hey, X-Men Apocalypse, we didn't see it. I'm going to see it. I'm going to pay to see that movie because I love X-Men and Marvel movies, so I'm going to see it, but I heard it's going to be cheesy.
All right, well, you heard it here first, and probably the only time ever. That's a second-hand review from a stranger that Kyle met at a theater who convinced him with their charm that she should listen, and the movie wasn't that good on the bootleg.
Yeah, so
in a
maybe
foreign
see
country.
Alice in Wonderland this weekend. Then if you hear X-Men's really good, then go see that. And maybe they'll give us free tickets to that in between now and then.
Yeah,
Maybe.
I like it. All right, well, thank you so much, guys. That was really fun. This has been Cine Reviews, talking about Alice Through the Looking Glass. We'll see you next time on Cine Reviews.